In this video, I'm using just a limited palette of primary colors to paint a border extension, and also just wanted to talk about some color mixing basics. Here I'm using a crimson red, ultramarine blue, and yellow medium as my primary colors, though your palette may be slightly different. I find it really helpful, especially if you're new to color mixing, to try creating your own color wheel. It's a really great way to become more comfortable working with your specific paints and understanding color theory. I'm also using titanium white, and even though this is a white border card, I still like to put down a base layer. Mixing two primary colors, such as red and blue, creates the secondary color violet. There are also 6 tertiary colors, which are made by mixing the primary color with its adjacent secondary color. This card has a lot of warm colors, which makes sense since it's a sunset, so I'm working with a lot of red violets, oranges, and yellows. You can change the value or relative lightness and darkness of a color by either adding white or yellow to lighten, and typically a blue or burnt umber to darken. A palette knife can be really helpful when mixing colors and not destroying your brushes. But since I'm working with such tiny amounts of paint, I find it easier to just use my brush instead. I also rarely use heavier body paints like this since it just takes a bit more water to get the right consistency. But these are actually the paints that I used when I first started altering cards and before switching to fluid acrylics. I like to spend quite a bit of time playing with the paints on my palette and getting the colors and consistency just right before jumping straight to the card. I'm also doing a quick swatch of the paint to compare the color and consistency again on a piece of thicker cardstock that I tape to the back of the card. I think these swatches end up looking kind of pretty, and I like to include them when I'm taking pictures of my cards for Instagram. Here I'm just going back in and color correcting the pink since I think it's a bit too intense. Colors which are opposite to each other on the wheel are complementary, so this is really useful to know when you're needing to adjust the saturation. So for instance, if the color is too intense of a yellow, then try adding its complement, which is violet, to tone it down or neutralize some of that yellow. If you don't have any black paints on hand, this can be made by mixing blue and burnt umber, or by just mixing all 3 primary colors, so some blue and red, and then toning down the violet using yellow. I'm really curious to know if you use only a limited palette when painting, or if you're like me and need to collect every color under the sun. You can find all of my altered cards over on Instagram, and consider subscribing if you're interested in seeing more. Thank you so much for watching.